our sort of 90-day game plan. So first of all, thanks for taking your time on a Sunday to come and just check in with us each week, just so that we can obviously help you sort of build your own business and really, put the systems and processes into a pretty solid foundation, and let this community build and just feed off the vibes of the crew, and just keep going as quick as you can or as slow as you can, and I guess the aim is each week just to check in and just see exactly where you're at with your business, in relativity to how many people you've helped, and then that way you can sort of be quite authentic with yourself. Because I think a lot of us get caught, getting ready to get ready, or in the learning phase without actually really taking any action. So just the first check-in is where you're at. So with the business, we know that there's a really simple system and model. If you get to executive, which is helping 10 people help 2 people, you're on your way to a 6-figure residual income. So if you're still at consultant and good at enrolling people but not good at helping them get their products paid for, then maybe your next focus is to start helping them have launch parties, reach out to your leaders, and really start focusing on them +2, because that's where your business really starts to grow. So just check in with where you're at and just take the next step. 90 days of consistent action. We're still in the first 30 days, so you should still be in that phase where you're just talking to bucket loads of people, or just starting to come out of your comfort zone, and you should be comfortable with connecting and telling your authentic stories. So this will just build and build and build over time, and as we all talk about with this business, what you do now will come into fruition in maybe 3 to 4 weeks time. So don't give up that momentum. Now, just also check in with what's your belief. So have you seen something been like, oh shit, there's a better product, a better system, or someone's asked you a question that you can't answer, and you've tried to be a nutritional expert even though you've only ever picked up Jamie Oliver's 10-minute cookbook. So just check in with where you're at, and if your belief's not 10 out of 10 in product or company or network marketing or compensation plan or yourself, that's often the biggest one, then just focus on where your energy is going to go this week. So if you're finding you're not getting network marketing, you can't get people to events, you can't do that type of stuff, then maybe focus on number 3. If you don't know how to get paid, or you don't know how to teach that to other people, maybe start looking into the compensation plan a bit more. So that's a good check-in. Also, your daily check-in, your 3-3-3-3. It's just, are you talking to people? Are you following up? Are you helping people in your team? And are you just doing nice things for people? That's as simple as it is. This is a really big one for Sunday, is to basically do a big equal sign at the end of the week and just look at it and be like, okay, how many people have I actually talked to? And as a result of that, how many people have started in my business? How many people have I helped get paid? So that's your enrollments and rank advance. How many launch parties have you facilitated and gone and helped your people with? How many people have you got to events that are already on? Like the Start Your Life tours on Wednesday night. Wellness Wednesday, BFree Mondays. There's so many things that all you have to do is basically connect them and plug them in. So just check in with those numbers, and if you feel free, or if you want to, you can just comment below under this webinar and just get a bit of accountability from the group and just keep owning it. And again, we don't care if there's zeros, just as long as they just keep getting better each week. So don't forget the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions, and just always do your best. Icebreakers, how to talk to people. It's really about connecting and finding what's in it for them, not about what's in it for you. Otherwise, you're in the getting game, you're in the salesman game. That's not what this is about. It's about sharing your experience with other people because you genuinely think that it will help them, and then just helping them get set up in the same way you got set up. Be a go-giver. So often to receive, you have to give first. So that's probably something that we all have to look into a little bit more. I know I do, and just always staying authentic, allowing myself to receive as well, also allowing yourself to step into the power and really be a leader for the people around you. Stop waiting for other people to go first. So also remember how to launch fast. U+2 is your first step. Then book a launch party and a launch party is just a gathering with your crew just to tell them what you've done and why you've done it, and then just giving them the information to look into it more. Ice the Body Challenge, we talked about that. Book the next company event. IC Uni is on next Saturday, Sunday, May 1 to 3 in Perth. So if you haven't got a ticket, I'd highly recommend you go to that, because you basically those 5 belief areas that we talked about at the start, you can get everyone to a 10 out of 10. straight away just by getting there. And then just a repeat, then +2 with your crew. Remember the tools, Monday night BFree Monday, tomorrow night. We've got the Tuesday, Thursday calls with leaders, Wednesday night, Wellness Wednesday, and then a couple of webinars each week. This week's task, so week 4, going to the last week, we're hoping now that you're starting to become professional. And Eric Worre talks about it as either you're a poser, or you're an amateur, or you're a professional. And to be honest, I think I'm just sort of working through amateur phase at the moment. So going to the next level and becoming a professional is where we should all work to be on. But the first thing is to realize that, if your Sunday check-in measures are really, really low and you got a lot of zeros, then you're probably a poser, and that's cool. But identify that and then start doing the things, and you'll start helping some people. So that's the aim of this week, is learn how to go pro. You've got the 4 agreements, not to take things personally. You've got the go-giver attitude. You've got icebreakers. You know how to talk to people. Now you have to do is put that into action and practice. And Eric Worre says, if you want to sign up or get 20 to 30 new people in your business, you're probably going to have to talk to about 250 to 500 people. So if your first 3 out of 333 is a 0 every week and you're not talking to new people, there's another big sign, right? So just get out there, meet new crew, and just start connecting. That's what we're born to do. Now, that's it for me. That's the Sunday check-in. So just maybe write down where you're at with all that stuff. But now, more importantly, we've got one of the co-founders, Tully O'Connor, who this man is he's a good friend of mine, and he's the one that sort of really kicked off this journey with me, and one of the co-founders of BFree. And he actually put his medicine degree on hold to come give this a crack, and because he saw the opportunity to actually help more people with peer-to-peer health and peer-to-peer impact, rather than sort of just sitting in a clinic every day and just talking to people one by one. I think, and he can share his story about why he did that, but more importantly, he's going to talk to us about connecting authentically. And he's I don't know if you've ever met him, but he's one of those guys that you feel that connection with the bloke straight away, and there is an art to it, and often it's just being authentic. So there's not too much behind it. But without further ado, Tully O'Connor, are you there, buddy?
Yeah, I think so. I'll mute.
Yeah, gotcha, man. Well, just do a quick introduction of yourself, dude, and then just take us through this piece on connecting.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, Rory summed it up pretty nicely. So yeah, and with BFree, with Physio and its ability to just impact more lives, and also create for me what I was really looking for at that time, which I think a lot of people listening to this webinar are obviously trying to build a business to generate the residual income, with the end goal being more time to do stuff. And, yeah, and so in the process, I've been able to build a business of over 1,000 people now, and like I said, just really showing our way forward and being amateurs, to be honest. So yeah, we're really kicking things up a notch now. And yeah, and I guess tonight what I wanted to speak about, if you go to the next slide, Rory, is just connecting, because a lot of stuff that's been coming up for a lot of people, a lot of feedback is overcoming objections, people sort of getting out of flow. Sarah was supposed to be on tonight doing a webinar on staying in alignment, staying in flow, and she yeah, had a couple of things come up that she had to be at. But everybody got really excited for that. So it's obviously something that everybody's sort of struggling with. You come into week 3, you've had lots of good goals and good ideas, and then things start to get tricky and start to get hard, and you start to get no's, and you start to run out of people to talk to. So this is just a really good time to bring it back to the basics, because in bringing it back to the basics, we can stay in action and stay out of overwhelm. So the basics of this business really are, and this is how Michael Clout breaks it down, is finding people to talk to, number 1, talking to those people that you find, number 2, and then teaching others to do steps 1 and 2. If you do that, and obviously plugging into the systems and using the systems and tools, then you can build yourself a network marketing business. So we're going to talk about the second point mainly today, and that's talking to people. So there's a couple of tools here, and I'm going to post these up in the team page, but for connecting with people. So there's a really good podcast for everyone. Podomatic podcast by Regan Hellier, I think her last name is. She's built a business, a multiple six-figure business from Bali. So not in Bali, it's not open in Bali yet, but she was in Bali while she was building her business with people that are in Australia and all over the world. So all her connecting was done online. So she's got a really good podcast there. And then there's another couple of podcasts. The Jeffrey Combs podcast. It's all about just connecting in general and the psychology and the science behind prospecting. Epic podcast. So that's just a few things for you to go away and you can take and use, and then you can then pass on to people in your team as well. So it's really duplicable. So I'll post those up after we finish up. If you can go on to the next slide, Rory. There's a little delay. So the keys to connecting. So I think a really important one is just to stay present, and it sounds really simple. Like anxiety and you know, unease over connecting, and what am I going to say, and what if they ask this, and what if that's all future-based stuff. And if you just stay present with the person in front of you, you're going to connect with them. Okay, because if you don't, people can sense it. We're more sensitive to things we can feel than words that are being said. So staying present is really key, and it's just important to check in with yourself before you go into any, you know, whether you're catching up with somebody for a meeting or a phone call. Just check in, like, am I present, or am I letting lots of other stresses in life come in and affect the way I'm connecting with this person? And really understand that, like, from the people that have I've spoken to, a lot of the anxiety that comes with it is all about saying the right thing. What do I say if I ask this? What do I say if I ask this? What do I say? And so just understanding that you're not going in with the intention to say lots of stuff, you're going in with the intention to ask lots of questions. Because you want to ask the questions and find out a lot of information about them. A, looking for some sort of pain point or some sort of dream that's being unfulfilled, but also B, you qualifying them for your time. And this is what the podcast with Jeffrey Combs really goes on into really, really well, is you're qualifying people for your time. And because once you take that posture, you're asking a series of questions to qualify if that person is ready for your time to either coach them to a health result or help them generate an extra source of income. Are they worth your time? Are they committed? Are they looking for what you've got? Rather than you just trying to get everybody that you speak into your business, flip that around, because the change in energy can be felt. If you're just trying to rope in everybody that you speak to, that sort of needy, desperate energy can be felt. And so if you flip that around and qualify people for your time, and because you'll speak to anybody who's done it, if you've enrolled somebody that's been an absolute headache, a nightmare, they just whinge, complain, don't do the program properly, da-da-da-da-da, and it's worth more effort than you want to give it. And so if you went it with this posture and qualifying people for their time, they probably wouldn't have qualified in the first place, and so you wouldn't have enrolled them. So going in with that posture when you're connecting with people can really help you. Just bring that good posture to the table, and it will get you out of your head and into your body. What I like to do as well is just to check in with yourself before each connection. So one thing I like to do before I jump on the phone to somebody, or before I go and have a sit down with somebody or a Skype, I just ask myself, so how can I best serve this person? So that's what the intention I'm going in with. It's not about me and hitting my goals and, you know, getting double PRBs or anything like that, because as soon as you try and rush and exposure, people can feel it. And I've done it, like, a lot of times, because when you have these goals and you're hustling, you can bring that energy into the conversation. So make sure you're just checking in with yourself. How can I best serve this person? Another key point is getting familiar with the next step. So there's no unknowns going in. So you're going to get to the point and the person's either going to want to know more information or they're not. And so if you know whenever they ask for information what you're going to say, then you don't need to be in your head thinking about it. You can stay in your body, you can stay present and be connecting with them. So the next step looks like a next exposure. And it's either send them some information, get them on a call, or get them along to an event. So you know you're about to catch up with Sarah. You know Sarah lives in Melbourne. You know that the next event is on a Tuesday. It's on the weekend. And you're catching up with her in the week, and you know there's an event on Tuesday. You know you've got person A, person B, and person C that can do a three-way call with you. So you know if Sarah has any questions, you can say, well, why don't you come along to this event on Tuesday? That doesn't work. Okay, well, good question. I don't really know. Why don't we get you on the phone with Rory? He knows all about that. But knowing what you're going to do next before you actually go into that exposure means you're out of your head and overthinking it. You're in your body and you're listening to them and connecting with them. And just know that it takes an average of 5 to 7 exposures for people to enroll. So if it's the first time you've spoken to this person, chances are there's going to be another exposure. So the last part, repetition is the mother of skill. Just start connecting with people. And even if isogenics doesn't come up or BFree doesn't come up, just start getting good at connecting with people because it makes you feel good. And the more you can connect with people and start getting to know people, the more you're going to, when the time comes and the right person does come across, you've practiced those skills just with everyday people. And the fact of the matter is you just start enjoying life more because you're connecting with people, and that's what we're all craving at the end of the day, is that deeper connection. So just start doing it lots. So overcoming objections is another big one. And price objection was the biggest one that came back, and the not ready to get started right now. And I think the biggest thing with overcoming objections is it's not what you say, it's how you say it and the posture that you have. And if you're going in with a needy energy or a desperate energy, or you're trying to get them kind of energy, it's going to attract more questions, more skepticism. Whereas if you go in with the posture of, you know the gift that you've got, you're qualifying them for your time, then that you can just feel how the energy would be different and you would attract less objections. Because basically an objection is just them saying you haven't demonstrated that there's enough value in this for me. The second thing is don't be afraid to say I don't know. It's actually probably the best thing you can say. So when they have an objection about the products or about this or about the business model or about, you can say, even if you do know, sometimes it's best to say I don't know. You can say, look, I don't really know all the ins and outs of that, but somebody in my team does, but I know somebody who does, and I can get them on the phone. And then you go into a three-way call or a tool, or depending on what's coming up for them. And then the third point is just the feel, felt, found method. So that's in Eric Warren GoPro, the book coming up. The beauty of this is most people come in and they were skeptical at the beginning. So the feel, felt, found is just if somebody says, oh, it's a bit expensive, you just say, I know how you feel. I felt exactly the same way. Rather than just going in and saying, no, it's not. It's actually this, 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 and then justifying it. I know how you feel. I felt the same way. That means you're on the same side as them. And then you say, but what I found is once I actually replaced what it was costing me in groceries, blah, 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 I actually found it saved me some money. So, and you can use that for any objection. You can say, I know how I feel. I know how you feel. I felt the same way. And then you can say what you found as a result of that. So the first objection that we'll cover is price. So that's a big one. And pretty much if you understand the value of what you're offering people, then price will be a good one. I look forward to when people ask me the price now. The last 6 people I've spoken to, 2 of which have already signed up, the other 2 are signing up next week. None of them had an objection about the price. They're actually kind of stoked with it because I've changed my posture around it and I've just reconnected with the value that I'm able to provide people when they sign up. So truly understanding the value. If you think it's expensive to get started, then a lot of the people that you attract are going to think that as well. So really check in with yourself, and if you do think it's really expensive, then go to work to I guess, understand the value of the products they're getting, then the service they're getting, the support they're getting, the opportunity they're getting, and it really, all of a sudden, $19 a day doesn't become very much at all, especially if people are looking at it as a business. So understanding value. The second thing is posture. A lot of people will come up with objections because they'll tell you what you want to hear, and then just give you a story when really 90% of the population have commitment issues, and aren't ready to make a change and commit to it. So they'll come up with a story with it's too expensive, it's this. So having the posture and saying, if somebody says, oh, it's a bit expensive, I can't afford it, just coming and responding, we'd be ready to get started now. And then if they give you another little excuse, then the chances are the person doesn't want to get started, they're not ready to get started, and they're probably going to waste your time. So having the posture to just ask the question, you'll be doing them a favour and yourself a favour, rather than stringing it along into this awkward no man's land. So having posture around the objection, and also expect the question. Like, you're going to get this objection a lot, or price is going to come up a lot, so sort of expect it and look forward to handling it. The examples I've used, like the 4 that are signing up, the reason price wasn't an issue for them is because I displayed the value before they asked me what the price was. So they said, well, how much does it cost to get started? And I said, well, that depends on what program we start with. We'll get started on one that's going to get you to hit your goals in a time frame that you want, and that you can afford. And then you go into breaking down the program. So you say, well, you're going to be replacing 2 meals a day with the program, with the smoothies. So if you were going to replace 2 meals a day, which meals would they be? And then they're going to give you whatever, usually breakfast, maybe lunch, or breakfast and my 4th meal of the day, depending on how much people are eating. And then you say, great, so how much are you spending on those 2 meals? They'll give you a figure. You say, cool, okay. So you also get enough to substitute a snack a day. So you're kind of replacing 2.5 meals a day. What would you be dropping out there? So that snack they're replacing. For the month, they'll be minimizing, reducing coffee. Most people are on at least 2 coffees a day. That's another $8 a day. And you just get them to, are they taking any multivitamins currently? You just get them to, because it's an instead of cost, get them to take stock of what they're currently spending. Most people are over $20 a day. And then you say, oh, well, not only are we going to get you healthy and feeling epic, we're actually going to save you money for the month, because it worked out to be $19 a day to start on the best pack for you. So you'll be saving money. So always don't respond when they ask the question, how much does it cost? Actually, even though most people are going to start on the President's Pack, don't imply that it's just a cookie cutter response to everybody. Really make it appropriate for them and go back to their goals. Well, if you want to lose that 6 kilos in your first 30 days, this is the program I'd start you on. But make sure you display the value before you give the price and help break it down for people. All right, next slide, Rory. He's probably just busy taking notes. The other objection that came up was it's not the right time. The fact of the matter is it might not be the right time for people. So people are on their schedule, not yours. And people are often really, really busy. So there's a couple of ways you can go about this. Because the fact is too, if they start and they're not going to do the program properly, then they're not going to get the result, then it's going to be a negative outcome anyway. So the right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. So you can either go 2 options. If they don't have the time, especially when you're talking about the business, and I haven't got this written down here, but this is a Michael Klaus favorite. If their issue is, I don't have the time, I've got the kids, I've got this, I just don't have the time for this, you can just say, look them straight in the eye and say, well, how would you like to change that? And if you're just starting out and you still don't have that posture around it yet, that can be a tough one, but it can also be powerful because people are in their zone. They've got their excuses, they've got their story that they're busy. I'm too busy, I'm too busy. How often do people say that? And there's a story that's repeated to themselves, and sometimes only through shock comes change. So sometimes something like that can be enough to break them out of it, and then they'll go one of 2 ways with it, but at least you're having the conversation, you're being real with them. Because if you come back to that, how can I best serve this person, they might need something to shake up their system if that's a solution that they're looking for. If not, another way you can say is, well, if now's not a good time or I'm too busy, then ask them, so why isn't now a very good time for you? And be genuine. And so they might be busy, or this is coming up, or that's coming up, or they're really stressed out or whatever, because the reason now's not a good time might be the very reason they should be starting the program. But just ask, be genuine, get clarification, and then just say, okay, you know, fair enough. So when do you think would be a good time to get started? And again, this is having that posture and qualifying people and sorting, because you're sorting and sifting, you're not selling. You're just sorting for people that are ready to change and help. You're not trying to see people who aren't ready into the being ready to make a change. So just go back to that last slide for me, Roy. So you ask them, when do you think will be a good change, because a good time to get started. And again, if they're umming and ahhing when you ask that, then they're probably not ready. Often they'll say, oh, in a couple of weeks. All you want here is permission to get to follow up. So don't just say, oh, okay, and leave it at that. Say, okay, cool, well, if I touch base with you in a couple of weeks, do you think you'll be ready to get started? And again, they'll say yes or no. If it's like, I'm not sure, then these are just little messages to you that I don't want to expend too much time and energy on this person if they're not taking it seriously. And then just find creative ways to stay in touch. Because if you're wanting to enroll somebody in your business, chances are you want to spend a bit of time with them. So just make sure you stay in touch. You're not just not talking to them again until you send them an enrollment form. So find creative ways to stay in touch. Okay, next slide, Rory. Cool. So in my experience, these are the two most important things. Multiple exposures in a short space of time. So you could have the conversation with somebody, and this is where consistency comes in. If you're speaking to somebody for the first time, then a week later you send them a tool, and then you haven't organised a follow-up, so you don't talk again for 2 weeks, and then you finally get to an event and the process drags out over 3 months, there's a drastically lower conversion rate than if you speak to somebody, send them some info, be ready to touch base with them the next day, hoping to get them along to an event or a 3-way call, and by that time they've seen enough and they know enough whether or not they want to get started. If you can bring that realistically, if you're organised schedules, you want to bring the 4 or 5 exposures to within a week, and you have much bigger success. So this is where understanding the next step, knowing when you get through calls, and knowing when events are, that you can really start to get efficient with that process. And another one is finding creative ways to stay in touch. 3 of the 4 people that I'm about to enroll happened through, not through me inviting to events, just through me catching up with them for social fun activities, because I was, and then it came from there. So just making sure you're staying in touch with people, whether it's chat, whether it's online, whether it's whatever. Find a creative way to stay connected. All right, Rory, next one. Oh, that's the last slide. So there was one thing I wanted to touch on, and it's the psychology of closing. I watched a really good video today, actually. It talks about the psychology of closing, or making a sale, or getting people to commit. And that is the number one reason people don't get involved in network marketing. Isn't because of product service, or they don't believe in industry, or this or that. It's because they're never asked. Most people, you'll show them something, or you'll send them a tool, and you'll just like, oh, well, what do you think? Or most people never ask the question, so do you want to get started? Okay, and so a simple way of saying that, lots of different ways. I find it's easier to remember one thing, and it's as simple as after they've seen a tool, or watched a tool, or had a 3-way call, or been to an event, just asking them, so do you have any questions, or are you ready to get started? So it's an either-or statement. Either they're going to have questions, or they're going to want to get started. If they have questions, cool. You'll figure out the best way to answer those questions. Then, after you figured out the best way to answer those questions, again, you say, so do you have any more questions, or are you ready to get started? And they're going to say yes or no. But the biggest reason is, and this was the biggest reason for me, is that I never actually just asked people. So, do you have any questions, or are you ready to get started? And that's going to be able to link you into your 3-way call or to close. And just removing the expectation, so having no attachment to the outcome. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're committed, if you're doing this 90-day game plan, then the person you're talking to, their decision won't change your life, but it might change theirs. Okay, so your success with this won't be dependent on any one person's response, therefore you should treat it that way. And it's really hard sometimes when you've got this person who's going to be a gun, or you just got this person you love and you really want them in your business and you want it more than they do. It doesn't matter. Just detach yourself from the outcome, ask the question. And I really encourage everybody to listen to this podcast by Jeffrey Combs that I'm going to post up. That's something I listen to on an ongoing basis. He brings out a new one each week. And just around the psychology of everything that we're talking about, it's hugely beneficial. So that pretty much sums up what I wanted to talk about just with connecting and objections. And then Sarah's going to be doing the next webinar on next week. But just for this week, just
values and alignment.
Pick one. Values and alignment. Cool. So that's what Sarah's going to be doing hers on, which will be awesome. For this week, just start really connect to people and just start asking the questions. So just check in with those things that we've gone over in the webinar, that you've taken notes on, and just start putting it into practice. Because if that's one thing I wish I did, was rather than learning for 6 to 8 months without doing anything at the beginning, because we didn't have this kind of support, go and put it into practice this week. Because to know and not do is to not yet know. So go out, talk to some people, mess it up, but just go out and do it.
Tully, man, that's I reckon you've shared a fair few knowledge bombs then, and for anyone listening to this, or perhaps listening to this at a later date, just for a bit of feedback as well for Tully, just share what were some of the takeaways that you might have got from this. Like, I even took a great one that the right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. And just little things like that, because people have got to be ready and willing for change, and that's something that really resonated with me. So whatever it is for you, just share some feedback with Tal. We're going to have Sarah next week on the webinar. Just before we shoot off, Tal, there's just one objection that keeps on coming back from everyday people that sort of get around BFree and get around this vision, and it's often that people say that they don't want to be a salesman. And I'm not sure about you, but I don't think I've ever done a cold call. I don't think I've ever. There've been times where I've felt like I've been pushing people, but I've never felt like a salesman. I think, like you said before, it's just finding ways to get people to commit to something. So what would be your best way to overcome that objection of not feeling like a salesman?
Well, I would say, because if the objection, if I understand correctly, is they like the idea of it, but they don't want to be a salesman, so they don't think they could be good at it if they're not a salesman. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I say, so the first thing I'd say is that typically salesmen aren't very good at this industry, because it's not about selling; it's about actually creating relationships and supporting people. Because when you're selling something, after the sale is made, then the transaction's finished. Whereas in network marketing, after the sale is made, that's when the transaction begins. And then I go on to share my experience of having zero experience in sales and actually being pretty horrible at it. Like, I couldn't even sell my physio treatments very well and needed a lot of training around that. So no experience, actually not very good at it, and I've managed to build a business of over 1,000 people. So you share a personal example after that. And then the big thing is if people think, if you're doing all the talking, and if you're the one explaining all the benefits, and if you're the one delivering all the information, then you're the one doing the selling. Whereas if you're using the tools, or if you're using third parties, or if you're using events, then all you've actually done is connect with someone and then expose them to an opportunity. So if you're getting that objection a lot, then maybe one thing I would say would be, maybe you're trying to do too much of the talking or the selling and explaining the benefits, rather than letting the tools do that. Because if you are doing the explaining all of that, then you are technically doing. People just have an issue with that word. Everybody's selling something, but it could be some feedback that maybe you need to use the tools more, or use more three-way calls or that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think the psychology of that is quite phenomenal, because you could know everything inside and out, but as soon as you go out of your way to connect that person with someone else who's also going out of their way, you know, the perceived intent is that you genuinely want to help them, and if you edify that person enough and they explain the benefits in a way that's relative to that person, and often just connecting to like-minded people, someone maybe who's been through that experience already, or someone who's just about to go through it, can be the simplest way to probably overcome most objections. Would you agree that that sort of three-way connection or a tool is probably the pathway of least resistance? So, and again, guys, we knew this in the first 12 months, didn't we, Tal? But we still, for whatever reason, didn't do it. So,
and I think the thing is at the end of the day, we're still dealing with people, like 95% of them, you know, have an employee mindset. And so you're going to come across people, even if you're doing everything right, that think you're selling, that think this, that think that. And don't let your attitude and energy be determined by people's response. I mean, obviously, if you're getting the exact same response every single time from, you know, every single person you speak to, then maybe look at that. But also look at that person, look at where they're at, and just start to observe more, and just don't take things personally, like for agreements, because that's on them. And a lot of the time, we can catch ourselves trying to turn chickens into eagles rather than just looking for the eagles. So if you're finding yourself having to convince and cajole people, then maybe they're not the right person anyway. And so don't let other people's reactions to what you're doing impact you too much. Almost reach out, tell somebody, like, connect with your sponsor and say, oh, I had a pretty fun reaction today, like blah, 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 and don't take it personally. It's all just a big fun game at the end of the day anyway.
Yeah, dude. I think you've summarised it really well, man. And yeah, just a big thanks to Tully for taking your time on a Sunday, on a long weekend, to get out there and, you know, put this together for people. I know that you were caught up at last minute, also because you wanted to share your information from last week. And yeah, just want to really throw that out to you, man. I'm sure everyone else who's listening to this has got a lot of takeaways. So I want to leave it at that. But yeah, thanks guys for the check-in, and we'll see you next Sunday with Sarah Blacker.
Thanks, buddy.